Well, hello, friends, and good evening, and welcome to our Sunday live stream, S.O.S, Sense on Sunday, or Stephen on Sunday, or Sowing of Seeds, whatever you like. Welcome, obviously, to those who are coming on live and to those who are joining us a bit later. So today, the topic prompted by the recent arrest of ex-Prince Andrew is getting royally shafted by the British Crown. And the innuendo is there deliberately, guys. Shafted being a metaphor, if you like, for putting things in holes where they may or may not belong, And those of you that know your English well enough will realize getting shafted, being treated wrongly, incorrectly, not only by the British Crown, but also in the Irish courts. Today, we're going to cover a case that's coming up tomorrow in the four courts. I think it's super important in context of the history of lay litigants being shafted by the system, often unlawfully and illicitly. And I hope it'll encourage a few people to turn up tomorrow in support. But one thing at a time, guys. So we'll start off here, and I'll see if I can make the screen a little bit larger for myself here. That's okay. So we start off with the slides. I've tried to cut them down again as usual. We start off with the first slide. Andrew, what do they call him? Mountbatten Windsor. Isn't that the name they're using at the moment? We'll look at that in a moment. Where did this convoluted name come from and what we should know about it? So anyway, we've all heard that he's been arrested. Okay, the recent released Epstein files have seen several officials from the UK named in the files take responsibility. So Mandelson is gone, other people have resigned. In the US, there has been little accountability, and what is unfolding in the royal family shows that no one is above the law. I hope you're not taking what you're reading in the mainstream press on face value, friends, because this statement, no one is above the law, is utter nonsense. Now, it may just be that Andrew here has just basically shot himself in the foot just once too often, and he is going to become the sacrificial lamb, as we're going to look at in a moment. But you see, I've underlined there the last sentence. It said a victim of Epstein, Virginia Giuffre, I'm not sure if I'm saying it right anyway, who accused the former prince of misconduct, has spoken after his arrest. Has she really? Well, either this is really shoddy and shabby reporting, or they're just putting stuff in for dramatic effect, because poor Virginia, as most people know, has passed away. Likely, I think, from suicide, after exposing Andrew. And then we had that ridiculous interview that he did where he claimed that he never met her and it was all made up, and, he didn't sweat and all this. That clearly, he's a pathological liar. But let's have a look now at what happened next. So at least he's been arrested. But the question is, how and why would such a prominent figure of the establishment be allowed to be publicly embarrassed and shamed like this and arrested? Well, according to his brother, the king, right? Thames Valley Police confirmed that Andrew was arrested on suspicion of misconduct while in office. Now, before I say any more, friends, point to be made here is that he's not actually being arrested and charged on the thing that we all want him arrested and charged for, which is pedophilia, right? But it's the likelihood, or the almost proven possibility, that he's shared state secrets with Epstein, who was able to profit from them in one way or another, as were no doubt many of Epstein's colleagues. So, insider information, if you like. Some of it may have been state secrets. It doesn't really matter at this point. He's a thorough rogue. He's a member of a family that has historically thought that they were above the law, absolutely above the law. But I imagine, and again, the symbolism, I'm always talking about the symbolism, friends, because top right there is the original principle. And the original principle is this concept that there was a plan for humanity which resonates with this original principle, which in turn resonates with the energies of the universe. Now, we won't go into much detail about the original principle today, but all of this adds up. All of these videos add up to the same conclusion, that humanity is more or less off track with this original principle. And as a consequence, there is evil. You see, evil it doesn't exist other than through human agency, okay? Whether or not you believe in aliens or dark forces or spirits, devils and angels and all that, that's sort of a secondary point. Because even if you do believe in those things, and even if those things are proven to be real energies influencing us, the fact is humans are the agents of evil, all right? And more so, not more so than individual humans, it's more so human institutions. But we'll get to that as we go along, guys. So it caught my interest, of course, that he was arrested on his 66th birthday. You'll know, those of you who watch regularly will know that we have a very solid theory about the whole 666 phenomenon, where it permeates and almost roots the whole of the COVID phenomenon in many different directions, at least a dozen different directions, including a link with the 9/11 attacks, which was exactly 18 years to the day before a crisis in Wuhan, September the 12th, 2019. 13 hours in advance of New York. If you trace back exactly 18 years, 666, 3 6s are 18. Again, it adds fuel to this notion that all of these horrendous events are well planned in advance. There's a reason for them. And if you don't watch out for the symbolism, it's hard to know what's going on. I don't believe this is pure coincidence. Now, it could prove to be, but I believe that this is sending a signal out to the people who do watch out for this symbolism, and largely dark forces, dark people working in dark and nefarious institutions. To be arrested on his 66th birthday, I believe, is important. Our time will tell, okay? But the palace, it says at the bottom, neither Charles nor Buckingham Palace were informed of Andrew's arrest in advance. Frankly, I don't believe that. I just don't believe it, you know. And we're going to see King Charles's statement now in a moment. Let's see what's wrong with this, okay? And the king says, speaking about his brother's arrest, noted that the law must take its course. Blather, friends, blather. They don't, as long as the law suits them, yes, they want the law to take its course. But they have to convince us that the law is supreme. And I hope to make this point. I did in a previous video before. The law, the original law, came from somewhere. And it only came, this is the 10 Commandments we're talking about, guys, from which all other laws are derived. The original law only came because, as Jesus explained to the scribes and Pharisees of his day, the people, the Israeli people, were too stupid, or a better way to put it was they're disconnected from this original principle. As a consequence, instead of intuitively and intrinsically, automatically knowing what's right and wrong, they had to have it carved on stone and delivered to them by Moses, okay? So no one is above the law. Well, first of all, yes, every true, decent, honorable, sovereign person is actually absolutely above man-made laws. Absolutely. Yeah. Anybody who's got a connect direction with the, a direct connection with the divine, and a self-evident one, of course, could, you know, arguably say, well, you know, I don't need your man-made laws to tell me what I should and shouldn't do, can and cannot do. Not out of selfish urges to do wild and crazy or dangerous things, but in order to have the freedom to do what God wants me to do. Now, if you really think about it, it makes sense. So the law is only there because we fell from this original principle and needed some guidance about how to get back on track, so to speak. The same as religion. Religion also is a construct that came after the fall. It wasn't around before it. There is no religion in heaven, for example. You know, and the Lord's Prayer says it, thy will be done, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Where? On the earth, as it is in heaven. Okay, so it's not about dying and going to some eternal paradise. It's about working to bring about that form of earthly paradise here, where good prevails, and we would need less and less law and less religion, right? Because the truth will be there instead. Anyway, not to get too sidetracked. So let's have a look at what King Charles said, I have learned with the, let's make it bigger, the utmost concern, or the deepest concern, the news about Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. We'll look at the name in a minute, okay? And the suspicion of misconduct in public office. What now follows is the full, fair, and proper process by which this issue is investigated in the appropriate manner, and by the appropriate authorities. Oh, it has to be the authorities. How about the public doing the investigating? Huh? How about making the public the authorities, as we're supposed to be in a democracy, in a genuine democracy? Yeah. Then he continues, in this, as I've said before, they have our full and wholehearted support and cooperation. Well, that's very kind of you, King Charles. There's nothing you can do about it. If the law operates according to its own principles, you've got no choice in the matter, have you? Anyway, let me state clearly, he says, the law must take its course. As this process continues, here's the caveat, my friends, as this process continues, it would not be right for me to comment further on this matter. Now, how many times do we hear that? Politicians being confronted about some incident that's happened. Oh, this matter is before the courts, you'll hear them say, you know, and it's a caveat. Oh, this matter is already being dealt with by such and such an authority. Therefore, in order to protect the integrity of the legal process or of the investigation process, I'm not going to say anything. It's a cop-out, guys. It's an absolute cop-out. And it's a convenient one for these guys at the moment because, well, first of all, I'd be asking, who needs a royal family? Now, I know it's an emotional thing for a lot of British people, but what use are they? You know, technically, they can't interfere in government, you know. They're just sort of symbolic figureheads. And if they're symbolic figureheads who, number one, are engaging in years and years of pedophilia and, and sharing state secrets and so on, and or who have relatives like King Charles himself or the mother, Queen Elizabeth, God rest her soul, you know, who actually gave Andrew money to pay off his accusers. Yeah. Oh, but so how about if you're not above the law, Charles, how about the authorities, the appropriate authorities investigating you for complicity by knowing the crimes that your brother was up to and not reporting them? Because every country has these laws, guys, whereby if you stay silent in the face of knowledge of serious criminal activity, you are guilty of a crime. All right. Hello, guys. Hello, Ron. Yeah. Sorry. Ron made a comment. I'm going to see what he says here. It's on Facebook, guys. The comments don't come up here. Oh, dear. Oh, dear. Oh. Sorry, no offense, Ron. You've come on before. He's got a fixation with the fact that Yeshua was Jesus's name in the language of his time, and anybody who refers to Jesus with a J is committing some terrible, awful blasphemy. Sorry, Ron. To me, that's petty, pernickety nitpicking. We talked about this before. I told you, there's multiple different languages in the world. If you start going on about semantics and things, look, I can't. Sorry, Ron. I don't mean to be rude to you, but I'm not going to discuss this further here. I'll maybe put a written comment for you. We can have another exchange on this. But having an obsession about semantics, or like anybody who refers to Jesus as with the J instead of Yeshua, they're causing some awful blasphemy. No, it's distracting and it's silly and somewhat silly, I'm sorry to say. All right, so anyway, we've got quite a few people on board now. Let's see what we've got next. All right, welcome, Nobby. Nice to see you, buddy. Oh, yeah, actually, interestingly, Nobby just says the royals still insist that their position is directly from God. Honestly, Nobby has not seen these slides before they came up, but you're going to be interested to see what comes up next. First of all, let's talk about the name, all right? First of all, the name Windsor, all right? So you've got Mountbatten Windsor, okay? So here it was created by Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip in 1960. 1960 is a very prominent symbolic year, guys. It's very prominent, very symbolic. Won't go into it all today. Another time would be worth remembering this. The name Mountbatten Windsor combines the royal family's surname Windsor, we'll ask where that came from in a minute, and Prince Philip's adopted surname Mountbatten. It's his adopted surname. So it's not even his real surname, which is derived, so it's borrowed from the German Battenberg, okay? So it's an adopted surname that was derived from another word, which is a city in Germany. This surname was created in 1960 by the Privy Council to distinguish the descendants of Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, from other royal family members who do not need a surname. Who cares? The name first appeared on an official document in 1973 when Princess Anne used it on her marriage certificate to, what was his name? Mark Phillips, wasn't it? The army officer. Yeah. Okay. So first question you ask is, so why this convoluted, highfalutin name? Well, let's look at the next slide. It's jumping all over the place me here today, guys. I apologize. So the next slide is, I hit the wrong button. Here we go. There it is. So the next slide talks about the British royal family's coat of arms, symbolizes the sovereignty of the monarch, really. So the monarch is sovereign, but the rest of us aren't. Is that so? Now, who do you think came up with that idea? Okay. I wonder, could it be the monarchs themselves? Yeah. They talk about the symbolism, which we'll ignore. We'll just go down a bit lower there. And in the order of the Garter, symbolizing the monarch's knighthood. So they're automatically made knights because they're royals. The motto, Dieu et mon droit, God and my right, is inscribed above the shield, emphasizing the monarch's divine right to rule. Now, as you can see, I've got there over on the right, that's Moses on Mount Sinai collecting the 10 commandments. And what's the first commandment? I am the Lord thy God. Thou shalt not have false gods before me. So these kings and monarchs have emphasized their divine right to rule. What if I say that so-called divine right actually comes from the other guy? And I'll tell you why. What's hopefully a little bit interesting for you. Let's see now. Wait a moment, friends. So what's worthy to note here, guys, and I'll show you the history now of this divine right of kings. Again, just to get our heads around it and understand who are these people that presume to lord it over us all the time, and that we tend to genuflect and defer to and treat like as if they're precious articles, almost as if they're demigods or, semi-divine themselves. What are we doing? Are we worshipping false gods, guys? It's a serious question. We need to be asking that of ourselves, because as I show you this history now of the divine, is it here or is it? No, I think oh yes. We're going to go to it in a moment, the history of the divine right of kings. Again, I'll do the apologies. Sorry, the text just ran off a bit. The symbolism of autocratic tyranny, domination, and exploitation equals, quote, the divine right of kings, question mark, or something else. Well, you see, you've got to marry up the two concepts. A divine right to do what? To lord it over other people. But what if the original principle says no one is supposed to be lording over us according to the first commandment, except for the Lord God, Jehovah, Yahweh, whatever you want to call him, okay? It, they, them, or even her, for all we know. Actually, the original principle suggests it's a combination of masculine and feminine energies in the form of some sort of I use the word persona, but maybe it's not the best word to use for an energy form that is all truthness and all goodness and all beauty and so on and so forth. And something attacked the original principle. As a consequence, humanity is in a fallen state. Now, we may temporarily need leaders of different sorts and organizers, but they're not supposed to be there to dominate and oppress us and tyrannize us, and of course exploit us. The only reason they can do this is because of the great lie. All right. I keep repeating this to people. Authorities in any form have to be questioned. Are they in alignment with the truth, with the original principle, with the original source, with God? Are they in alignment? Not just because they bloody well say so, but we've got to use our intellect and say, well, are they or are they not? And as we now discover that hardly any of them are, because this is a diabolical construct. The construct of top-down hierarchies is diabolical because it requires you and me to surrender our consciences to the authorities. That's what's fundamentally wrong. It's a fundamental attack on the original principle. So there's just the symbolism. There's not a great amount to see. There on the left is oh yes, I didn't even mention this. I'll just bring it up. The one on the left is the house of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. And you'd say, well, what's that? I think have I missed one? I'll just pop back, guys. I think I missed one here. Yes, hold on a minute. I missed one. I didn't read. Oh, yeah, this is the one I failed to read out. I'm sorry, guys. Windsor, so the surname Windsor is actually after Windsor Castle, okay? It was linked to Queen Elizabeth's side of the family, it says, for even longer. But come on, let's tell the truth here. In fact, during the First World War, all right, in 1917, her grandfather, King George V, made the dramatic change of adopting Windsor as his family surname, cutting ties with the dynasty of the House of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha amid an anti-German sentiment in Britain during World War I. Okay, so the long and the short of it is that this was a convenience by the royal family. They decide they're Germans, basically, right? Now, there's nothing intrinsically wrong with that, except for the fact that the Germans were fighting the English mainly, you know, during the First and Second World Wars, right? And it was two German bankers who was funding the British and Americans on one side. They were brothers. I think they were. Oh, I don't want to say it because if I'm wrong, it would be causing an unnecessary stir. It wasn't Habsburg and it wasn't Rothschild, but anyway, there were two brothers, and one of them was arranging the funding for the war effort on the side of the Allies, and the other was arranging the funding for the First Reich, and then later, of course, the Third Reich and Hitler and the Nazis. All right, makes you wonder. So, what's the purpose of money? And who's really running the world? Anyway, I'm sorry, I missed that one a bit earlier. So now this makes a bit more sense to you. You see the House of Habsburg on the left there, and the British royal family coat of arms on the right. There's a few similarities, not too much to worry about, but why all the symbolism? What's going on? You know, it's almost like, well, the more feathers we have in our flags and the more horses and lions and bits and bobs, the more important we are. Well, maybe these are all false idols. Possibly, guys. Yeah. So I'll see if I have time, guys. I'll come over. Hi, Vaughan Malone again, and Fiona. We'll see if I have time to answer some of these, but we'll crack on. So medieval Europe, again, just a bit of information, guys, because what this is all about is about us waking up and using our God-given intellect to discern which authorities, if any, we should be being respectful to or obedient to. You know, I would argue if they're not directly connected with your own moral sense of right and wrong and connection to the divine, then you should give them a wide berth if you possibly can. The big problem is we're stuck in a world where it's authority figures everywhere telling us what we can and cannot do. And most of us are either overwhelmed or subjugated or browbeaten into compliance because we haven't really understood how important it is not to obey. Not to necessarily to disobey, especially if disobedience means causing grief or violence or whatever, but not to obey illicit laws or rules or directions, no matter who the authority is. So the divine right of kings is a political doctrine. Political. Who's the prince of politics? A guy called Machiavelli. All right, who actually made an art form out of deception and trickery in order for your own personal gain. The divine right of kings is a political doctrine that asserts, so it's politicians that assert that monarchs derive their authority from God and are not accountable to earthly authorities. Yeah, very convenient, isn't it? This concept originated in medieval Europe and was notably championed by Henry VIII and Louis XIV of France, who lost his head, didn't he? The doctrine became prominent during the age of absolutism and was used to justify the absolute power of monarchs, particularly in the context of the Reformation. That will relate to Henry VIII, because he made himself the head of the Church of England and went against the Catholic Church. You know, nobody can argue with me, and if you do, like happened to Thomas More, you know, and the rise of nation states. The doctrine faced criticism during the American Revolution and the French Revolution, leading to its decline in credibility. So what on earth is Charlie talking about if it's declined in credibility? Sorry, guys, I don't know what I'm doing here, but I'm obviously doing something I shouldn't at this end. You won't notice it there, but the thing is leaping around. So that's where this divine right of kings comes from. It's been discredited. And but Charles still has it on his coat of arms, and it's, you know, and he's sort of deferring to the common folk, you know, the revolting common folk. We should do a bit more revolting, by the way, whether or not we are revolting, you know, we should still do a bit more of it. Revolting less as a noun and more as an adjective, maybe, or whatever, or the other way around. Anyway, so what's he doing? You know, I'll defer to the publican. The law must take its course. Yeah, it's very convenient, is it? No doubt. The spotlight now is on Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, right? And he's no doubt been told, listen, it could be worse. You could end up like Epstein. So just hush and take one for the team, whilst the rest of the bad guys and the cabal and the establishment and all of the other terrible, wicked, sinister people involved in these things, you know, do damage control. That's basically what we're looking at, guys. Right, now we're going now to the second item, very important too, right? Now, this Mexican-looking gentleman here on the right is a man called Arnaud Gautier. As you might guess, that's a French name, okay? Don't be too distracted by the creative mustache there. He's actually a very sincere and decent person, decent man. Now, he's up in the, I think it's the Court of Appeal. We'll get to the details in a moment tomorrow. The point I'm trying to make here, it's according to the title, getting royally shafted by the British Crown and by the Irish courts, right? There's a connection between the Crown and the Irish courts too. But I'm just making this point again. It's quite important what Arnaud is doing. Now, how can I explain this in a concise and accurate way? Well, basically, the courts describe Arnaud as, how do we put it now, as a competent and capable litigant. And now the emphasis here is on him being a lay litigant, or what they say, litigant in person, which very simply means you don't hire solicitors and barristers. It's an indicator in many cases that you've actually wised up that it's a franchise. They're not really there to help you. They're there to line their pockets at your expense. They'll drag it out, especially in the Irish courts. They'll drag out cases to make as much profit for themselves and to keep the system ticking over and to justify the very existence of these utterly corrupt courts, okay? And I say that with some authority, guys, okay? So what Arnaud is doing, and he's been at this now for some years altogether, right? But he's had a case. He's a company director. The Irish state came, you know, they crossed swords with him, and he realized early on that he couldn't trust the legal profession to represent him properly in court. So he started, and he's very studious, and he's a bit of a perfectionist, and he got in and he studied. He's a Frenchman, and he still went in and studied Irish law and European law, the European Court of Human Rights, and so on, you know. And to cut a long story short, what he's doing, and here's the conundrum for me. Whilst I honestly admire his dedication and his efforts and his willingness to take on the corrupt elements of the system, I honestly do, and I wholeheartedly support him in that. And even as I publicize what he's going to do, I realize that by publicizing it, it's going to give an extra heads up to the system and go, holy, you know, Manning's been promoting this as well. You know, there's absolutely no way we can let this guy succeed, because what Arnaud is trying to do tomorrow, I believe it's the Court of Appeal, but we've got the details in a moment. If anyone can turn up to help him, that'd be great. What he's trying to do is argue that lay litigants, people who don't have solicitors and barristers, are entitled to their costs and their expenses, if you like, according to certain rules and regulations. Now, I did put a few slides together. I'm not sure how many we can look at in detail. That's just the header for his, where are we here? That's just the header of the paperwork. If you need to look up the case number, it's up at the top there, record number, okay? And so later, if you want to look at the information, it should be on file, although the court service have been known to lose or disappear documents that are inconvenient to the system. Let's just fly through the few slides we've got. Okay, now what's this Open Justice Ireland? Well, basically these three gentlemen here, I know all three of them. We've worked together in the past, most notably in the lead up to the establishment of the People's Tribunal of Ireland. Very briefly, although that's not the best photo of Paul I've seen, no offense, Paul, okay, but these are the people that are amongst those leading the charge against corruption in the Irish legal system. All right, they're all litigants in person, and they all have different stories and reasons why they're involved. But at one point, I was invited to join the group, and we discussed. This is how we came up with the idea for the People's Tribunal of Ireland. But some people are more inclined to play the game out. My sort of take on it, and the reason I've put up Open Justice Ireland here is for those of you who might want to contact them. That's the webpage. Go and speak to them. There might be ways that you can work together to help each other. That's what this is all about. The system is utterly corrupt. I personally have lost faith in any process that requires playing with the devil in his own backyard, so to speak, which is how I when you dance with the devil, when you dance with the devil, he gets to call the tune. All right. But what Arno is doing, and he's very good at what he does. He's very exacting, and he's got all the laws, and he's quoting the different authorities and everything. And he's basically saying, look, here is your law, Irish courts, and here is the decisions made by your Supreme Court. And here are decisions made in the UK about the very same matter. And here is the amount of money that they've paid out to litigants in person. And you're supposed to have the same common law system and so on. Right. And again, if I make a technical mistake here, I apologize. The point of actually promoting this here is to encourage people to go along and listen to what happened. Now, what I'm going to do is and support Arno, because he is up against it. I know that most of these judges, most of these lawyers and solicitors and barristers, most of the agents working in the DPP's office, most of the court service, especially at the senior level, are utterly unscrupulous, amoral people, and they may not be thinking too much about it, but they've parked their consciences. They're just going to do as they're told. They're part of the system. They're not going to question it, not if there's a risk that they'll offend one of their superiors or lose their job. These three guys are completely different. These are guys who keep going up against the wrongs of the system, and they've been doing so for years. Like I said, my only respectful criticism is that the knocking one's head against a brick wall syndrome. How many times are we going to do it before we realize, that we're up against a diabolical, utterly compromised system that rewards the sociopaths and psychopaths for all of the lies that they tell and things like that. But these are good men. They're doing their best within the confines of the law and the Irish legal system. I've tried to sort of go outside it, creating another institution, the People's Tribunal of Ireland, that can at least help people in documentary format. You still have to go back into the courts with your documents, and you might then face more shenanigans. But it's less likely to happen if you have a decision already done. So please feel free to contact them. Let's see now. Arno says here, these are a few paragraphs out of Arno's submissions to the court. All right. He's listing here the time he's spent. He's only going to charge them €100 an hour, compared to, in England, for example, they'll pay litigants £150 an hour, or they have done. And he quotes these cases, right? He's not claiming for stress and inconvenience, but he's basically saying, look, if we cannot trust the Irish legal system, and if we cannot trust lawyers and barristers to actually do what we're paying them to do in the courts, largely because of their compromised positions and the presence of corrupt judges, right? If that's the main reason, then if we're going to waste all of our time and effort and money and keep turning up to hearings that you guys keep changing at the last minute, or that you don't respond to, which is all in Arno's thing, and I'll bring up the next slide while I'm talking, so you can take your time to read that as I talk. Then for all of these reasons, and he quotes here the civil procedure rules, I think this was in England and Wales, that people were paid out. Why is it different here in Ireland, But you see, for the system, what's really scary and worrying for them is here he is quoting more. What's really scary and worrying for them is if Arno succeeds, it opens the floodgates for all of the lay litigants in Ireland, all of us who have been battling in the courts on, as best we can without having this legal background and legal knowledge. We've had to learn it the hard way. And as we've learned it, we've realized, oh my God, what a convoluted, unnecessarily convoluted mess the so-called law is. Look at all the tricks and shenanigans and deviousness, this business with legalese, a language is half Latin, half English, the absence of punctuation in a lot of these laws so that you can interpret it almost any way you want. It's all designed as a great lie. It's a great deception, guys. You don't go into courts to get justice, not the Irish courts. You go into the Irish courts to get royally shafted, with the emphasis on royally and the emphasis on shafted. Okay? Look it up, please, guys, and you'll see. So, yeah, here's Arno making other quotes, yeah, he keeps minute details, and he's got all the documentation he needs to meet. Now, he's very good, actually, in his submissions. He talks about this honourable court. Now, I stopped referring to them as honourable courts an awful long time ago, but it's what you're supposed to do. It's another great lie, the pretense of integrity. This honourable court and your honourable, judge, and calling them, whether they're, depending on their rank, whether they're a judge or a justice or, and all this sort of stuff. Look, I long since went past. Now, I would apologize at the beginning of my documents. I'd say, look, I apologize for the lack of honorifics and pleasantries, but frankly, I'm sick to tire, sick and death. Sick to death, yeah, sick and tired of kowtowing and genuflecting to people who are morally undeserving. I'll treat you as I would any other person I'll meet in the street. If you're honest and decent, if you're genuinely trying to do your job, in a morally right way, according to the guidelines, then you will have my respect. But if I know that you're lying and you're bending the rules and everything in order to shaft decent, honorable people coming in front of you, well, you can get stuffed. I'm not going to pretend that I respect you, So they're talking here now about wasted. This is Arno talking about wasted costs, where there are various solicitors and that have defined time wasted in court due to conduct issues refers to delays and resources lost caused by the unreasonable, improper or negligent behaviour of parties or their legal representatives. The UK court system has mechanisms to address this, notably wasted court orders under section blah, blah, blah of the Senior Courts Act, which allow courts to penalise legal representatives for such actions. So in Ireland, they get rewarded for doing this because it's all money flowing into the system, and they are literally. It's like you may, for example, in England, it's reasonable to assume in a country of 60 million and lots of distinct districts with police forces, localized police forces in all these different areas, that you will get pockets of integrity, and that you will find a judge, and a visiting lawyer maybe from another region, and he's acting the blackguard, and a judge may say, well, listen, Sonny, you're not going to do that here in my court. There's none of that in Ireland, guys. It's all centralized, and it's a great argument against centralization. You've got one national police force, the Garda Síochána, controlled by politically appointed senior ranks. It's another thing most people don't realize. You can only be promoted to the rank of superintendent in the Garda Síochána by senior ranks in the Garda. After that, if you want to go higher, it's a political appointment. And we wonder why and how it's all so corrupt. Let's see where we're going here, Arno. I've got a few more things to pop through here. I hope I'm doing us justice for you, Arno. So he's asking an order for damages for 12,000 for his time costs and incidental to this preliminary issue, because, of course, the opposition also were playing games and blocking his applications, causing him more delays, expenses, times, and so on and forth. Please read it when you can, guys. I'm concerned that we won't finish if I read each one out in turn. And an order, yeah, we've got 150 euros a day, which is not much, guys. Not when barristers and Lawyers are getting paid $4.5 grand an hour in some cases. Your money, by the way, yeah, taxpayer money. And if the court decides or considers that the principle on wasted court order should apply to the above application, it's within its inherent jurisdiction to order that the respondent's firm of solicitor or their counsel should refund their client. So Arno, somewhat cheekily, impertinently, but I think totally appropriately, is saying to them, hey, look, it's up to you, judge. This court is the judge. The judge has the jurisdiction to order the losing side, which would be Arno's opposition here, some state body or whatever, or solicitors, to refund their clients, right? Why not? You know, why is there always money flowing into these legal agencies and never flowing out? Yeah, there's a reason for it. So here's Arno's doing he's doing a fundraiser, as you can see. Accountability. Now, where is it now? Where is it? GoFundMe. Yeah, GoFundMe, guys. All right. So if you'd like to help, feel free to go to believe it or not, I went in to put a donation, honest to God, Arno, and it blocked me. I sent you a couple of messages to tell you I couldn't contact Arno all of a sudden on WhatsApp, believe it or not. This has happened before. I won't go into the story now, guys, but I would say on 3 notable occasions in the past within the Integrity Ireland organization, we were dealing with very important court cases. We were organizing supporters to go to the court cases. And on about 3 different occasions at least, definitely 2 that I remember off the top of my head, but on 3 different occasions, the organizers, including myself and a couple of other people, all of our phones stopped communicating. And as a consequence, there was a bit of a, there was interference in our ability to organize supporters to come and deal with us, so to help us. So if you want to help him materially that way, that's great. But I think possibly more important, now that we've got a blank slide here, I didn't know I had a blank slide in there, but okay. Oh yes, Arno has put this up for everybody. He's saying if you're a lay litigant and you are putting paperwork into the court, he's respectfully encouraging every litigant, represented or under, so tell your solicitors to add this at the bottom. For damages for my time and trouble, costs of and incidental to these proceedings, and then there's all the legal quotes in there, yeah, and the Convention of Human Rights, meaning that if the courts and the Irish state were doing what they're supposed to do under the Convention of Human Rights, lay litigants would be getting reimbursed their costs at the very least. Okay, guys, so there's a quote you can take, lift it and use it. And here we go. Oh, my Lord, why has it done that? Wait a minute, 1 second. I'm just going to look at this on another slide so I get this exactly right. I don't want you turning up there at the wrong time. Where are we, Arno? Let's see, where are you? Oh, yeah, there was a blank slide in there. I don't know why. Now, isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? I can't accuse everyone of, let's see. No, it does. Yes, 2 o'clock. All right. So 2 o'clock, Monday, February the 23rd, which is tomorrow. Arno is in there before Judge Simmons. Hold on a minute. Come on, guys. Judge Simmons at 2 p.m. on the 23rd of February. If you look up the record number, you'll know which court it is, guys. Okay. But I believe it's the Court of Appeal. I don't double quote me on this, but please contact Arno, contact one of the other 2 guys, Bill or Paul, on the Open Justice website if you're in any doubt. If you can get there to support them, guys, I'm personally asking anyone who can make it to turn up. You know what? The amount of times I was in court and a few people would turn up, it was so encouraging, guys. You do feel you've got a team with you. Even if everybody doesn't understand exactly what's happening, the judges know. They can see and they're going, holy Moses, that's another 2, 3, 4, 10, 20, or even 30 people extra who are going to walk out of here and report on how I behave in my own court here. It's helpful, guys. At the very least, it's very helpful. Okay, so good luck with that tomorrow, Arno. Let's hope. There's another blank one. I don't know why we're doing this. Now, I've got a comment here for Mr. McGorry. This is Terry Gorry, who's a solicitor, okay? He has been commenting recently on the Enoch Burke case. Now, again, you know what? We're not going to talk about Enoch today. We've got too much to cover. And I wrote back to him. Let's see if I can read this out to you guys. I'm sure you can see it. You quote, this is my response to him pontificating on the Burke case. You know, you quote the High Court and the corrupt, politically appointed ex-lawyer judge Brian Cregan, and member of the legal franchise that you, Mr. Gorry, also elicit profit from, as if it still has any credibility or moral, let alone legal authority. Now, we're saying that the courts, they don't. Without the mindless goons, which are the guards, the court staff, and prison officers, obeying a judge just because he directed them to, you know, but I'm just doing my job, and without obsequious and subservient so-called legal professionals routinely protecting and endorsing the great lie in all of its Machiavellian manifestations, well, I'm afraid Mr. Brian Cregan, that's the judge, would be in very deep water with any right-thinking person. Let me get the last bit that's missing from here, guys. I do apologize. He would be in very deep water with any right-thinking person without his prostituted, mindless hirelings doing his bidding. Strong words, guys, but you know what? I've always been a believer in speaking truth to power. This is one of the ways that you do it. Okay, let's see. Next slide, see if it jumps around for me. Okay. Oh, what happened here? Oh, that's interesting. Again, there's strange things happening here, guys. I don't really know what's happened here. Is there a clip here that I have to? Yes, there is. I've got to play a clip. I don't know why it hasn't shown up, but never mind. Never mind. We, yeah, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to play a short clip here, guys. And this is about the issue of unlawful immigration. Let me just get down to it. Here it is. Okay. Just listen to this guy, guys. Just only very short.
Years in prison. In India or Indonesia, you also get 5 years in prison. In China, you get 1. In Thailand, you get 2. And if you enter Singapore illegally, you get 6 months in prison and they cane you. But in Europe, we give people apartments, mobile phones, and a monthly allowance.
Okay, so you can see the point I'm trying to make there, guys. Again, it's just point to consider, you know, are our politicians, for some reason that has not been made apparent to us, making absolutely ridiculous and stupid policy decisions? For what particular reason? We should be asking ourselves that. Okay, back on with the slides. Which I believe is, yeah. And then at the bottom there, I had this man in there, but anyway, it says at the bottom, if you want to enter in an animal safari park in South Africa, you have to show your passport. But you can get into all of these countries in Europe, not only without one, but without any sort of a record. And a couple of other commentators say, and if you enter the USA illegally, answer, you get sent back home. Sounds reasonable to me, this person says. Yeah, right now, Trump is hitting the instant deport button and sending them back, which is exactly what we should be doing in Europe. Of course, there are different circumstances for, you know, and different approaches to be taken. You know, hello, Mary Burke. I'll read your comment later, Mary. You know, sorry, guys, but this is something strange has happened here. I believe that these were from last week. Yeah, I do apologize, guys. So what I'm going to do is just, what's happened is I've added one PowerPoint onto another one, and all of these old slides have come up. So let's see. I'm going to fly through these because I did have a couple of clips to play to you. So I'm just going to fly through these really quick. This was from last week. I apologize for this, guys. I could jump, or I don't know where to stop. These were from last week, yeah. And yes, this was the one I did want to show you this. I've got a little clip here to play. We did cover this last week. It's again highlighting the fact that authoritarian systems, we're down to the last 10 minutes now, guys. So authoritarian systems are not, they don't devolve from the original principle. The original principle says that you and I were designed to be autonomous, sovereign beings. We would help each other collaboratively. We would share. There would be people who are wiser or more experienced who would take the lead in various projects, but we would all be getting our moral direction And from that, of course, our social direction, our financial direction, whatever it might be, you know, we'd be getting that through the conscience from the spirit. Spirit, mind, body, concept, plan, action, deity, feminine, masculine, in that order. All to do with the properties of light. If you want to know more, I've got slides up on Instagram, guys. I'll try and keep adding to them. There's only about half a dozen or 8 there so far, but it's a good start. You'll start to see where all of this is going. So you cannot have a large organization that integrates with other social institutions and global organizations and institutions without it compromising its original founding ethos, if that ethos was a good one. All right. It just can't happen, guys. Institutions do not have consciences. People do. All right. I do apologize, guys, that this, I don't know how I meant. Yeah, even this, who to listen to, honest doctors. I'm going to play you another short clip here now, guys. Okay. Please stand by. This is Dr. Roger Hodgkinson making a point about the oversight bodies.
If physicians had not been intimidated by the very body that is supposed to protect you from me, if they'd been allowed to speak their mind without the threat of losing their income and their positions, then an individual patient, such as you and me, in a closed examining room, would have been told the truth. Right. The truth. They have been denied that ability to do that. We have had that for centuries.
And just to reiterate, he's talking about the oversight bodies for, you know, medical councils and the like we have in Ireland, who, you know, who vilified and targeted a number of doctors, including the 3 on the previous slide.
The 2 principal medical ethics have been trampled on by this government. First, do no harm, and informed consent. First, do no harm has been trampled on. The mandates have killed, as we've heard, more people, many more people than they've saved. But informed consent, I would put it to you, how can you give informed consent if you are not informed? And you have been denied information intentionally by the colleges that are supposed to protect you. So I say this, putting a point on it. The colleges of physicians and surgeons across this country and internationally are co-conspirators with government in state-sanctioned murder. Thank you.
Pretty direct, guys, huh? Pretty direct and pretty honest. Again, emphasizing the fact that all institutions are constructed, all large institutions. I think the number is about 70 individuals that you can keep in an institution and still maintain an honest moral ethos. But the minute you get bigger than that, then you start after pointing people into sort of top-down pyramid type structures that are in control, and then they expect the people below them to obey them, or else, you know, and then the principle becomes, oh, the institution is more important than the people that are in it, etc., okay? Or they have to integrate with other social institutions, and then they become tainted by the corruption in all these other institutions, and so on and so forth. It's well worth listening to, guys. I've done a couple of presentations on it before. Okay, where are we going? Got to go back to the next slide. Where are we? Where are we? Yes, we just said. So that's who to listen to, who not to listen to. Here we go. Is any institution such as the Irish Medical Council with political or financial ties to the current establishment. Please do your research. Okay. And then it says the Irish Medical Council is there, they say, you know, to protect the interests of the public when dealing with registered medical practitioners. Absolute lie. It's an absolute colossal lie. They're there to protect the establishment and to penalize those ethical and moral doctors who dared to try and tell the truth during the recent you-know-what phenomenon. Okay, next slide. I've put this in most weeks. Lies equals the currency of deceit. Liars are Satan's salespersons. The solution, courageously confront and challenge with the truth. And again, because I hope I've got the other ones in here, but I always put a little promotion there for the last book I did, Crisis Color Coup. This is part of The Great Lie. Too small for you to read, perhaps, but freeze it, or better still, buy the book and read it for yourself, guys. It tells you all the standard lies we're being told. Our rights come from God, not government. Now, I've got another short clip here, guys, of RFK Jr., sorry, speaking on the subject of God. If I can pull him up here. It's not long, but I think it's worth listening in context. It struck me as being very appropriate. Here we go.
God talks to human beings through many vectors, through each other, through organized religions, through the great books of those religions, through wise people and the prophets, and through nature. Nowhere with such texture and grace and joy as through other human beings. And when we cut off our relationships with other human beings, we lose that access to the divine. And that is a healing power. We are in a spiritual malaise in this country. And we need to give people access to all different ways of reconnecting with something that is higher than themselves.
So now we know, if I dare interject, now we know why. I think this is finished now. Just one minute, let me see. Oh yeah, so that was from one of Russell Brand's podcasts. Now we know why they tried to separate everyone during the COVID phenomenon, pandemic, whatever you want to call it. And I've been saying this for a long time. It's a lot to do with keeping us separated from the divine. Let's pull this one out. How are we doing, guys? We're getting close, yeah? Okay, let's see, what else did I have here? I do have another clip to play for you, which I hope you'll find a little bit humorous. As a matter of fact, I'll pull it up straight away. Yeah, let's see. This, it's sort of funny. This is a guy. This is a guy in a wheelchair who's partially deaf, asking some other person to please speak up. He may have said, "Are you speaking English?" He may have said, we don't see the other guy, but clearly he's some sort of foreign national, right? This is the reaction of a police constable who's been called to the matter. He's very polite, but please listen. I mean, it's not long. It's funny, though. I think it's funny.
Conversations between yourself. Apparently, you've alleged, we weren't here, so I don't know who said it, but you've alleged to say, speak English. Or what's that effect?
Speak clearly.
Speak clearly.
No,
okay.
The gentleman's partially deaf.
Yeah, okay.
Speak clearly. The woman at the bar says, the gentleman's partially deaf. He's deaf, and he said, speak clearly. He says to some person who's talking to him. He just literally didn't understand him. Believe it or not, the policeman is investigating whether it's a hate crime.
Yeah.
So I couldn't even hear him.
No, and that's fine, and that's why we've just come to speak, because potentially someone could perceive that as a hate crime.
Didn't we just know this was going to happen?
No,
didn't we?
People, if someone says to me, officer, I believe this, then we need to look at it, because someone's potentially reporting to me.
I don't know why it stopped there, guys, but yeah, it stopped anyway. Okay, so I'll remove that. Now, I mean, obviously, you don't need to comment much on this. Police, what are you doing? What's happened to the English police? I had a sister in the English police at one time, What's happened to you guys? Are you that dumb and stupid that you're just going to follow orders no matter what? I mean, really, a life like that isn't worth living, I mean, all through history, we've been told the same. All right, guys. So anyway, that was our bit of humor. Now, finally, there's a very short one here. If I can get it. Oh, yes, this is a protest at the Dáil.
The time is now to get up against this government and the parasitic agenda. Everybody, please share and follow and be there for our country. Thank you.
So, March the 5th. I'll promote this again in my upcoming videos. We're almost out of time, guys. No point putting the other stuff up now. Got to say goodbye. Thank you for everyone's time and attention. I will do my best to go in and answer all of the comments that I see. Paul O'Neill, right? And yeah, God bless you all. Thank you for your time and your support. I never ask for money or anything like that. Okay, it's just important, though. If you like what you hear, please share it. It's all about education and awareness. God bless everyone, and hope to see you next week in stream.